Excited to have our last home game. It's great. It's coming against in-state rival like Auburn. The rivalry's gotten a lot better since I've got here. Bruce made the comment to me a couple years ago, now this game's a game that's played on a national stage. These games have always meant a lot for the state of Alabama, but they're now got national meaning. I think that's the case here. We've got a chance to win our second outright SEC championship in the last 3 years, which is a big deal. We'd like to win it outright. We can clinch it outright with a win tomorrow. So that's what we're trying to get to now. Focus on the game. Auburn played us pretty tough there. I think they've got some guys playing better basketball. Katie Johnson's been shooting it a lot better. Wendell Green gave us problems. Jalen Williams gave us problems. We've got a lot of basketball. Certainly not a foregone conclusion that we're going to clinch this thing outright. We've got to play a great game. We maybe haven't played our best basketball. We didn't close the game great Saturday, but I think our guys are locked in. We've had a good couple days of practice, and we're looking forward to our last home game here tomorrow night.
Yeah, two if I can. One with the pregame intro. How was that handled in kind of the recent days, and maybe any punishment handled there? But also, just a game question too. I mean, Wendell Green. What do you guys need to do better against him this game?
Let me take the first one first. I'm glad you actually asked that question. That situation's on me. We addressed as a team. As soon as I brought it up to them, they immediately understood how it could be interpreted, and we all felt awful about it. They explained to me that it's like when TSA checks you before you get on a plane, and now Brandon's cleared for takeoff. We, as the adults in the room, should have been more sensitive to how it could have been interpreted. And I dropped the ball. That's it. I dropped the ball on it. We've addressed it. I can assure you it won't happen again. As far as the second question with Wendell Green, he's great at drawing fouls when he takes threes. He's kind of kicks the leg out. He's got everything going. We fouled him taking threes too much. We let him get threes off. He's quick. He's great at getting his shot off. We tried all kinds of different guys. We didn't do a very good job. I mean, we had smaller, quicker guys on him to stay in front of him, put some bigger guys on him. Honestly, the guy that probably did the best job was Rylan Griffin, freshman, at the end. So we kind of challenged some of our smaller guards. We got to do better. We've discussed maybe putting more length on him, but he's a really good player. Teams have, great game plans that stop really good players, and they still get buckets. And I said this before. I mean, I spent 11 years in Detroit. Wendell's from Detroit. I saw some really good guards like him, and he's one of the best, and I got a ton of respect for him. But we've got to do a better job on him second time around.
When you guys won the SEC 2 years ago, it was on the road. It was a COVID season, so not a lot of people there. Would it be a little sweeter to do that on your home floor in front of a packed crowd in a rivalry game? Have you talked about that with the guys?
Yeah, it would be a lot sweeter than it was at Mississippi State. I mean, it was great 2 years ago, but the last home game of the season in front of a raucous crowd, I mean, it's Auburn. It'd be much better to do it. Now, like I said, we're not assuming that's going to happen. We've got to take care of business. So but yeah, I mean, we plan on having this place sold out. It's been sold out for a long time, so it'll be a lot better than on the road at Mississippi State. But that brings up some special memories, though, because I do remember when we got back. I don't know if you remember when we pulled in. I got a great picture with Fluff that night. He kind of rounded everybody up to make sure they greeted us coming in. But so there's got some special memories back then. But we've also got, it'd be great to do it in front of a home crowd with everybody there. So I think the more, and that's kind of for you guys to talk about, and it brings up some great memories for me 2 years ago, the more our players start thinking about that stuff, the less they're focused on the game. And I think we've been pretty good at focusing on the game. So we've discussed it a tad. Didn't really get into it much. We more discussed what do we have to do to win the game, and stopping Wendell Green and Jalen Williams and Katie Johnson, Flanagan. That's got a lot more to do with it. Once we take care of that, if we're fortunate enough to do so, we'll worry about, how nice it is to win it at home if we're fortunate enough to do that.
When you get to this point of the season, we all assume the mental approach kind of changes a little bit when you get to the postseason. How does it change from your point of view? Do you have to do much with these guys, and are you kind of already there?
Look, I think, college basketball gets to be a long season, especially now. I mean, you can start. We had our guys on campus the last week of May. Summer school starts. We had a summer tour, so I think there's, an art to making sure that they're peaking in March. And shoot, it's definitely not a science because I try to get them to peak at March every year, and it doesn't happen that way all the time. So I think it's one of those we want to be really focused in, but we got to be smart with how much time we spend on the floor, how much their bodies are. But the whole mindset is, and I talked to them today, like we got to push to the finish. Like we can't endure practice. We've got to, you guys, I mean, a lot of these guys have been playing basketball for 10, 12, 15 years. This is what they work for. Let's not waste all the time we put in the gym for the last however many years, even just since we got together the last week of May. We can't waste all these hours we put in by not being prepared to play now. I mean, we're in March. We want to peak in March. Tomorrow's game's going to be played first game in the month of March. So we're just pushing through to the finish, I think, mindset. We've got sports psychologists that our guys meet with, and he's kind of been talking about some of that. But so, yeah, the mental part of it in March is as big as anything, keeping them mentally fresh, physically fresh, all that.
After the game, I talked to you about Brandon having his best 2 consecutive games. He doesn't get SEC Freshman of the Week. Do you have an opinion on that? And do you think the current situation is going to cost him season accolades?
It's a really good question. I mean, he obviously had a great week. We're proud of the week he had. He's able to focus a lot. But I think, the 2 guys that got the awards, Oscar had a great week too. I mean, and look, if you look, he's the reigning player of the year in the country. Kentucky had a dominating win, another strong win. You kind of look to what the team does too. And we had 2 solid wins, but our team hasn't played as well as maybe it needed to. So, and then Nick Smith's coming off injury and played well, Arkansas. So, look, here's the deal. In our league, in the SEC, they got to make tough decisions every week as to who gets it. So, there was great players that got the award. Brandon had a good week. I'm sure he'll get awards moving forward. We'll address that as it comes up. But no, I mean, I don't know the answer to that, the second part of your question, to be honest with you.
Nate, you guys are 5-0 in one-score games this year. I think the number was 3-4 last year. Obviously, Brandon, some different roster, shot creators help with that. But did you change anything in your approach late, either it be foul management, timeouts, or anything in those crucial moments?
It's a good question. So we've looked at since year one or 2 possession games. You're talking about 1 possession games. We've looked real strongly at what we have to do, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It helps to have really talented players when you're trying to win games in the last possession or 2. And it certainly helps to have Brandon, who's made it clear that he's got very strong mental game. He's clutch. He makes free throws late in games. So I'm going to be honest, we haven't – every year we go through and talk about into-game situations, who do we want in, who's our closing team if we're up, who's our closing team if we're down. This year it's been a little bit more who's playing best, what the matchups are. We've talked about, we've got an analytics company that helps us. I got their whole report right here, and some of that's, like we're trying to figure out what are the best matchups that we can get and then see how the game goes. And we've been fortunate enough for things to drop our way this year in those 5 games. I haven't looked at what our record was in 1 or 2 possession games, but when we won it the second year, we basically flipped what it was in the first year. And I think if you're going to win championships, you got to be able to close games late, and I mean, you go back early in the year in North Carolina, we had 4 overtime game. I mean, we had to get that thing to overtime. Our guys made some big plays, and no, we haven't made any strategic major changes, other than we do definitely talk about lineups that we need to have in at the end of games based on up, down, and whatever. So.
Yeah, Quinterly was really played really well last game. Jaden Bradley didn't get as many minutes. You kind of talked about the guard play. It kind of depends on how teams are playing them. The first time against Auburn, Jaden Bradley played a really good game, and Quinterly really didn't. Are you anticipating any kind of who's going to play more on Wednesday night and everything like that?
I mean, kind of like the previous question, so who's playing well at the time? I thought, there's different matchups where different guys play better. Jaden's been really, really good for us. I mean, all year. I mean, he's been our starting point guard. He guards. He's tough. He's physical. He takes care of the ball. He makes a ton of winning plays. But just with the way they were guarding him, and they had bigger guards with size, we thought Quinterly could get by him, which he did. I mean, if you look at our second half splits with Quinterly in the game, I mean, he got downhill to the rim. Now, Auburn doesn't have as big a guards. Jaden's bigger, stronger than some of the guards that they'll put out. I don't know how Auburn's going to match up because, most teams aren't game planning just to stop Jaden Bradley. We've got Brandon Miller, who's really good, Mark Sears, who's can score it in bunches. We've got different guys, even Clowney and Charles. But, so if they choose to put their best matchup for Jaden on Jaden, then I don't know how that affects some of the other matchups. So we'll see how things come out. But Jaden had a great practice today. Javon had a great practice. Quinterly's definitely got his game going again. I'd been saying that for a couple weeks in practice. Sometimes you have to see it, and I've said this a lot as a basketball coach. You see it in individual workouts first, then you see it in 5-on-5 situations in practice, then you start to see it in the games. We've been seeing it in practice for Javon for a few weeks. We're now starting to see what you guys are all starting to see what we've been seeing in practice in the games. So Javon's done this before. 2 years ago, he got it rolling for the SEC tournament. He was tournament MVP. I feel like he's getting it rolling again. So he's a really talented player that's got all his confidence back, and he's playing great. Jaden Bradley's a really good player, and you can play the two of them together. Jaden makes his teammates better. Javon can make shots. You can play Javon off the ball. He did a lot of that 2 years ago when we essentially started Herb Jones at the point. So if they're both playing great, we play them together. That's the good thing about our matchups. You put the two of them together with, 6'9", 6'10", 7 foot across the front court, you still got pretty good positional size on the floor. So I'm not sure how it'll play out. We'll wait and see who's playing well, how their matchups are, all that. But we're ready and willing to play whatever matchups, whatever lineups we need to play to get a win. And I'll say this about this crew. We've got if you guys knew this team, this is a really, really high character, closely knit, tight, great culture group of guys. When Jaden played great against Houston and Javon didn't hardly play in the second half, Javon was as happy as anybody on the team, told me we were going to get the win. It was great. When Jaden barely played in the second half against Arkansas, he told the coaches, you guys made the right decision. That's what we had to do. These guys just want to get wins, and it's unbelievably refreshing to coach the group of guys that I'm coaching right now because they really just care about winning basketball games, and they care about each other. They're not concerned with their own personal agendas, which is sometimes very hard to get at this level. But I feel like we've got it. That's also why we're winning games at a pretty high level right now because Jaden Bradley wasn't his feelings, came into practice, had 2 great practices, and he's going to be ready to go tomorrow. So.